Welcome back to Tanner Style. My name is Oliver Tanner. We're here in Osawatomie, Kansas today, and today we're getting back to basics, doing a basic cooking video. So today we're just cooking basic white rice, or if you prefer to eat brown rice, it's the same process, okay? As always, we look at process on this channel. We don't necessarily do recipes. All right, so let's look at what we're working with today. With cooking rice, getting exact quantities of rice and water isn't really necessarily very important. What's important is that we have the right ratio, okay? So I just grabbed this to measure our rice. We're not using any measuring cups per se. What's important, what really matters, is that for every cup of rice that we use, we're going to use about 1.5 cups of water. So it's a 1.5 to 1 ratio. 1.5 for water, 1 for rice. Or however many units. We're going to do 2 for rice and 3 for water. That's going to be our basic ratio. Okay, so that's all that's really important when we're measuring things out. Before we get to cooking the rice, so we already talked about our ratios, right? The next thing that we do, and this is important, okay, is we're actually going to measure out our rice first, and this is where our mesh strainer is going to come in handy. We're going to actually put the rice in there, and we're going to rinse it out. Back before I started Tanner Style, I asked my friends, what kind of content would you like to see me do if I'm cooking outside in an outdoor kitchen? Somebody wanted to know, how do you cook rice over a fire? And so that's what we're going to do today. This is back to basic cooking skills. We're looking at how to cook rice, and today we're going to look specifically cooking rice over an open fire. And we're actually going to do a series of videos because there are basically 3 different methods to cooking rice. Okay, there are many different rice dishes, but all rice dishes are essentially one of these 3 ways of cooking rice. All right, now the goal here is not to soak the rice. We just want to get the rice wet. We want to wash it around, and then we're going to drain it. And as you can see, what we have left is some nice cloudy water. Now the point of rinsing the rice is to get rid of, now all that cloudiness in the water right there, that's starch, okay? All of that starch, if we leave it in the rice, it's going to make our rice more gummy. It's not going to be nice and fluffy like we want it. So right now we're just kind of trying to tap out some of that extra water, okay? We're going to set that aside, and we're just going to discard all of this water. We don't need it. We don't want it. We're just trying to make the rice so that it works better when we cook it. So with our rice rinsed out, we're going to go ahead, toss that into the pan. Let's go ahead and measure out our water. 1, 2, and 3. We can go over and get this cooking. In a previous video, somebody had commented that I should cook over the coals, not over the fire. And that's a good rule of thumb to use much of the time, but not all the time. And this is why part of what I do here is I try to break down the rules that people have in their head. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, okay? Sometimes, it's like when you're cooking at home, sometimes you cook on low, sometimes you cook on high, sometimes you cook somewhere in the middle, okay? You change your temperature, and that's exactly what we do sometimes with the fire. When you're cooking over coals, you're gonna cook over a lower, more constant, steady heat. When you're cooking over fire, you're cooking over a direct, higher heat. And so sometimes I might want to heat up a pan really quickly or something. I'm going to put it over the fire for a little bit, then I'll maybe move it over to the coals. Now I bring this up and I talk about it here because this is actually applicable here today with what we're doing. So as you see, I have an area here where I've got a little bit of flame, and I've got an area where I've got some coals going. So we are going to go ahead and put our rice on top of the flame, because what we want to do right now is we want to bring this to a boil. And when you're cooking rice at home, you always want to start with cold water and rice, okay? You don't want to heat up your water first. Just throw your rice in there and you want to bring it up to a boil. As soon as that is up to a boil, we are going to go ahead and we're going to put the lid on it. We're going to move it over to the cooler side. We're going to let it simmer for about 20 minutes. That should be enough for all of the rice grains to absorb what they need to, and then it'll be all cooked. Okay, so I did want to say one more thing about quantity of rice, okay? So when you are looking at cooking rice and you're trying to figure out, well, how much rice do I need? And you got to look at how many people you're feeding, how big of a component the rice is in what you're making. You know, sometimes it's just a little side, sometimes it's a main component of a dish, right? And so you want to look at how much rice you need. And basically a good rule of thumb is that when you cook rice, it is going to roughly double in volume. Okay, so if you have 2 cups of rice dry, it's going to make about 4 cups cooked. So now I've given you information on how to choose a quantity. I've given you information on the ratio, 1 to 1.5, okay? And I've given you information on how to cook. Bring it to a boil, and then take it to a simmer, let it cook for about 20 minutes, and it's done. And with a fire, the only thing is, you know, we cook over the flame for higher heat, then we move it over the coals for that lower heat. And that's how we're gonna control the heat so we can get a good cook on our rice. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes now. Let's go ahead and check this. All right, looks like it's about cooked, so we're gonna go ahead and give it a little taste. What you want is you want there to be no crunchiness in there, but you do want the rice grain to be firm, kind of spongy, not squishy, not pasty, okay? And that's how you know that it's done. So you can also check this earlier if you want. Just be careful when you check it, because when you open up that lid, don't be lifting up the lid and checking on it a bunch, because every time you open up that lid, you're letting out all the steam, okay? And that's one of the big things that's helping that rice to cook. Your rice isn't gonna cook right if you let out all the steam, and all that steam is gonna let out heat, right? And then it's gonna take longer for your rice to cook and go through that whole process. All right, so this is why, you know, with rice, this is one of the few times when I say, go ahead and set a timer. We are gonna go ahead and we're gonna season our rice with some salt. We're going to throw in a little bit of pepper, throw in a little bit more salt, and then we're going to take our fork. We just barely washed it, and we're going to go ahead and fluff this up, stir in all of our seasoning. Now, we did get a little bit crispy on the bottom and on the sides of the pan, and that's fine. That's just because we're cooking over a fire. We can't completely control our heat source. Got a little bit crispy, but really it's fine. That should be just fine. So let's go ahead and serve some up. Actually, I kind of like those little crispy bits in it. It's good. So it's a little crispy, but it's not undone, right? Everything is fully cooked. Seems to be seasoned just fine. And you know, you can use this however you want. You can use it as a component in something. You can use it as a side. Add some butter to it. You know, when I was a kid, I used to just like putting butter, salt, and pepper and just eating the rice just like that. And that's perfectly fine as well. Now, look, here's the thing, okay? There is actually more into cooking rice than this. This is basic rice cookery. Now, if you talk to a sushi chef, I mean like a real serious sushi chef, they could probably go on for days about rice and the importance of cooking rice, the variations in hydration and temperature and everything else for cooking different kinds of rice, okay? Sushi chefs legitimately can spend years perfecting their rice cooking skills, okay? Because rice is something that can be fine-tuned. But for most people at home, this is a basic general formula that will work for about 99% of your rice needs, okay? And so there we go. We've got our basic rice cooked over a fire. Thank you for joining us for this video. Make sure to check out our next video where we're going to check out method number 2 of cooking rice pilaf. If you enjoyed this video, we'd appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up, share it, comment down below any questions you have. What's your favorite thing to have just basic rice with? Okay? Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video with our rice pilaf.